Excited today and honored to have Tracy Harrison, my teacher, my functional medicine teacher, on in our group today. And I am a health coach just like you, who learned functional medicine, and it changed my practice like 180 or 360, or yeah, I guess you can only do 180 degrees, but it really allowed me to build a full practice and have a deep, rich knowledge of how to reverse disease processes in my clients. And prior to that, I was trying to do a lot on my own, figuring things out. And I can't believe the level of knowledge that I have now in learning functional medicine has changed my practice immensely and allowed me to build a really successful functional medicine practice. And I help people worldwide. I have other practitioners now in my practice. This is wonderful. But the reason we brought Tracy on today is because today is all about saving your clients' gallbladders. And everybody here, I'm sure, knows somebody who's had a cholecystectomy. That's getting your gallbladder removed. And it's so unnecessary in so many cases. It's possible to save it 100%. And I've done so with my own clients in saving their gallbladders. And it's really rewarding to be able to do that. So I'm going to introduce Tracy. She is deeply passionate about transforming healthcare and the powerful combination of a functional medicine and a savvy clinical partnership. Tracy's a scientist. She left the high tech world, corporate world in 2007, and built and had her own multimodality practice as a health coach, utilizing functional medicine principles. And in 2011, she founded the School of Applied Functional Medicine. The reason she did this, by the way, I know a little more inside information, is she, did a lot of functional medicine training, but the training she had did not really teach you how to apply it effectively in your practice. And that's exactly what her school does, is through case study after case study and working through each case, you learn how to apply it effectively in your practice. So I feel super confident and competent that I'm able to help people with just about anything that comes my way. And that's the real difference in her school. But Tracy holds 3 degrees from MIT, just a brilliant scientist. She's gone to University of Bridgeport for nutrition and also the Institute for Functional Medicine, and she helps us put it all together. So, Tracy, I'm so excited to dive into this topic. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jody, and also for that warm introduction. Indeed, you and I have had the pleasure of knowing each other for many years now. And indeed, I want to celebrate that your success is a true blue, authentic testimony to what is possible
Mm.
through good, solid, savvy health coaching as a skill, but also activating the greatest power of health coaching by having that functional medicine knowledge that can help you to be a better partner with your client in order to help them to take the steps they need in order to prevent or reverse, resolve disease. Your testimonials, if you've never checked it out before, Jody's testimonials, hopefully you're collecting them too, because they are powerful marketing, authentic, true, about the impact that you can have in order to inspire other people to work with you.
Absolutely. And
But but
I built a business just on testimonials, really.
yes,
People just telling their friends about me
yes.
because they've gotten amazing results working with me. And it's enabled me to really quit my part-time job and do this as full-time work. And it's so rewarding and so amazing. And I can't believe what I learned going through your program, because I thought I knew so much
Hmm.
before I started your program. And I felt like the health coaching program I went through was good, but it was like I already knew so much of that information. Tracy has such a deep, rich knowledge and really helps you put things together so you can help your clients. But anyway, Tracy, I know you're anxious to get started with the gallbladder topic. So why don't I let you go ahead and present that?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in. Thank you for your warm words. But yes, the topic of the day is gallbladders. For so many people, perhaps you, and certainly for your clients, it may seem like such a ho hum body part. And as Jody alluded to earlier, collectively, culturally, even in healthcare, certainly in conventional healthcare, so much of the bias working against gallbladders is we almost treat it as though it's an optional body part. that it's not really necessary and there's really not any negative impacts. So, hey, when in doubt, let's just take it out. And I want to do a huge amount of myth busting for you today on, first of all, why the gallbladders are absolutely worth saving, expand your knowledge as to what the gallbladders and bile carry out in the body that goes way beyond the typical supports digestion type of function, and then help you to really understand some of the most common upstream drivers of the cascade of imbalance that leads to gallbladder disease, and then the need for, as Jody said, a cholecystectomy and the removal of the gallbladder. Because once you've taken it out, we are going to suffer downstream from the negative effects of missing that, far from being lowly, very important anatomy. So let's dive in, because coaches can help save gallbladders. And as health coaching becomes more and more well known as a critical wellness modality, both working independently in terms of alternative care and support, working collaboratively, maybe working integrated in a medical practice. There are so many different ways in which health coaches and their unique skill set and your unique lens on a unique human being who's suffering with a certain disease dynamic is actually essential for the efficacy of healthcare overall. I will say real quickly that if you want to receive the slides that I'm presenting today, you are welcome to use this link in order to get access for those. If you officially registered for this session, you'll receive them automatically. But if you are live streaming right now and you want to get the slides, I'm happy to share them with you. So let's talk a little bit about the problem. The reality is that cholecystectomy is not rare. These days, the past few recent years, we see an average of over 800,000 gallbladder removals each year. That alludes certainly to how much we might consider it to be an expendable body part. But the unfortunate reality is removing a victim from a crime does nothing at all to arrest the criminal. That's logical, right? It's logical to you. That story explanation would be logical to your clients. That's essentially what we're doing. A diseased gallbladder, once it has progressed, can indeed be dangerous to the human body. But the gallbladder is actually a downstream victim of a number of common upstream functional imbalances and dysfunction. And if we can treat gallbladder disease as a giant wake-up call, a red flag that there are systemic imbalances that need to be resolved, then we can not only take the step of saving gallbladders, but also preventing the eventual other disease that those imbalances are going to create. In fact, I think all of us collectively have an opportunity, I would say a responsibility, to go deeper in how we honor and protect this valuable anatomy. We can do much, much better than just waiting for the problem to get severe enough to justify taking out the plumbing, if you will. And so my mission today is to educate, inspire, and empower you to play a critical role that I know from experience you have the skills to support mightily. And that is to engage earlier to help to save gallbladders. Because indeed, this is not a rare opportunity. An estimated 25% minimum of women 60 years of age or older have gallstones, which means the factors that have colluded to create that have likely been at play for multiple years, maybe multiple decades beforehand. So your window for impact is huge. And indeed, the initial stages are not necessarily going to have gallbladder-like symptoms at all. Instead, the cues and the clues are elsewhere in the body. Now, let's back up for a moment and talk about bile. Perhaps nothing is more ho-hum in the body than a gallbladder than bile, right? That not so interesting substance that the gallbladder holds. In fact, bile is made in the liver. It is a mixture of a variety of different biochemicals. And in fact, the recipe, the ratio of these ingredients is really essential for helping bile to have optimal properties. A lot of what can go wrong is because we end up with not enough water or too much cholesterol or not enough bile acids in the bile, and a skewed recipe can end up with a bile that has characteristics that lead to congestion and stagnation. The power of the gallbladder, though, lies in its being a sac. And it's unfortunately that reality is one of the reasons why we often marginalize it, because a sac, that doesn't really sound very important. But the critical role of the sac is its ability to collect and concentrate bile in a bolus. And then just a few times a day, stimulated by our meals, our snacks, our eating, that gallbladder is stimulated to empty, to erupt, if you will, to deposit the bile and all of the things that come along with the bile, which we'll talk about in a moment, into the duodenum in order to pass through the GI tract. And ideally, an awful lot of that bile is reabsorbed in a process we call enterohepatic recycling, where the bile flows from the GI tract, gets absorbed through the intestines, back up into the liver, and reused multiple times, putting a relatively low pressure on the body, constantly needing to generate as much bile. And in fact, poor bile absorption, that's actually a known GI disease, right? Bile malabsorption syndrome can cause marked irritation and inflammation in the intestines, such as in the colon, and increase the risk of inflammatory bowel disease. But most of us know, if you've been educated at all on basic anatomy and physiology, that bile is important for digestion. We need it in order to degrade dietary fats so that digestive enzymes can be more effective at breaking down triglycerides and helping us to absorb those fats. And similarly for fat soluble vitamins. Bile is also an alkaline substance that, along with the alkalinity of bicarbonate and the acidity of stomach acid, comes together in making a perfect recipe for ideal pH in the gut, an ideal pH that helps the right microbiome diversity to thrive, and the right pH that also helps our digestive enzymes to be effective. Just because you have plenty of digestive enzymes coming from, say, your pancreas, doesn't mean their activity is affected. That is modulated highly by pH. And so things like having sufficient stomach acid, having good motility in the small intestines, and yes, having complete emptying of the gallbladder for an optimal bolus of bile is key for digestion and key for pH. This limited explanation, what I've described, is already very important, but often we marginalize the importance of bile in the gallbladder because our understanding stops here. But the reality is that the effects are not so lowly, and gallbladders are not expendable. Bile is actually antimicrobial, and a huge component of how bile helps the overall GI tract is in maintaining a balanced, diverse microbiome. And research shows that even certain keystone species in the human microbiome, like certain strains of lactobacillus or bifidobacteria, are naturally evolved to be resistant to the antimicrobial actions of bile, helping us to keep those keystone species, while bile helps to manage opportunistic overgrowths of different microbes. And in this way, bile is really a part of our passive immune function. Bile is also a critical component of detoxification. When we focus on the power of the liver for helping us to get rid of toxins, we need to remember that the vehicle, the substance in which the liver packages up toxins with escorts and gets them into the GI tract so that it can be compacted into a stool and excreted in a bowel movement, That vehicle is bile. And yes, when we have a stagnation in bile motility or bile movement, it's important to remember that bile is a toxin laden substance, and we don't want bile to stagnate, much more likely to be promoting disease in the biliary tree, in the gallbladder, in the duodenum, perhaps extending even to the pancreas. We want to have good motility, but also complete emptying of the gallbladder so that bile doesn't hang around too long and start to create disease in the GI anatomy itself. But optimal bile synthesis, bile movement, and gallbladder emptying is a critical part of what we call phase 3 detoxification. That's the final step of toxin clearance. And this is going to apply both for endogenous waste products like bilirubin from degraded red blood cells, but also from metabolites from chemical toxins that we brought into our body in our food, in our personal hygiene and beauty products, right? The myriad chemicals that we're exposed to on a daily basis. But it goes even beyond that. Bile helps us to avoid excessive inflammation in the gut because as our microbiome is naturally thriving and we are experiencing growth of some microbes and die off of others, as our immune system helps to keep peace in the microbiome, we end up with a lot of microbial debris, microbial waste products. And some of these are very pro-inflammatory in the intestines, to the point where we actually refer to them as endotoxins. We have to manage endotoxin if we want to have a healthy gut. And a major source of endotoxin is LPS, lipopolysaccharides, which is a fancy name for bacterial body parts, right? It's debris from our microbiome. And bile actually helps to break down lipopolysaccharides so that we don't end up with a wave of inflammation in the gut that can start to create localized dysfunction, like nutrient malabsorption, or even systemic dysfunction, anything from brain fog and anxiety to joint pain and arthritis anywhere in the body. I hope you're starting to get a feel for, wow, the effects of bile and the impact of a optimally functioning gallbladder go way beyond digestion.
And if you
Bile
take out that gallbladder, what could possibly go wrong?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Who knew?
Um, Bile salts also act like hormones in terms of regulating lipid synthesis and metabolism in the liver. And indeed, to Jody's point, right? You take out the gallbladder, we shouldn't be surprised to see a variety of downstream imbalances and dysfunction. Cholecystectomy can increase the risk of elevated triglycerides, worsening of fatty liver, and further progression of metabolic syndrome. Helps to address oxalate load from our diet in particular, which is why cholecystectomy may increase the risk of kidney stones in vulnerable individuals. There are lots of considerations here, and these are just some of the high hitters. But our opportunity here is to find and resolve the functional imbalances that are leading to even the initial impairment in gallbladder function, the initial impairment in bile flow, because even years before gallbladder disease starts to become visible at all, the person is still suffering. There's highly likely to be suboptimal nutrient absorption. There can be brewing dysbiosis and opportunistic overgrowths in the gut. And there can easily be a progressing buildup, a wave of inflammation in the gut that is eventually going to peak and wreak havoc in the body. So once we take out the gallbladder, to Jody's point, we have missed the opportunity to concentrate bile to get all these benefits. When you remove the gallbladder, what happens is that the liver, via the biliary tree, is going to constantly drip, 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 drip bile into the small intestines. There is no collection. There is no sac anymore. There is simply this constant chronic dripping of bile to irritate the intestines, but no concentration of bile to have those bolus positive effects that we know it can have. And this delicate balance is completely eradicated by cholecystectomy. And many practitioners that are educated medically to think, oh, well, doesn't matter. It does matter. Congestion in the biliary tree can be brewing for years before we see the development of any type of symptoms, and certainly any type of gallstones. This can happen, as I mentioned earlier, because the recipe for bile has been disruptive and become suboptimal, especially too much cholesterol concentrated in bile, making it thicker and flowing less effectively through the biliary tract. It literally kind of gums up the works. Too little water, which we know can affect the flow of anything. Perhaps too little bile acids or phospholipids. Or maybe it's not about the recipe for bile. Maybe it is about sluggish motility, right? That can result from a variety of different functions. It might be a natural consequence of a hypothyroid state, poor vagus nerve function, anything else that might impair motility on purpose. What about GLP-1 agonist medications that are trying to slow down motility on purpose just in the name of artificially quelling appetite, but it's at a price? So we know that in the years prior to any more disturbing evidence of gallstones or gallbladder disease, a person may be suffering from incomplete toxin clearance, from disrupted digestion, and other symptoms for many years, and indeed maybe decades, before things become severe enough to promote these alarming, more dangerous disease manifestations. But the reality is that once it progresses to gallstones and then obstruction in the actual gallbladder, then acute disease can indeed develop. And people find this out, unfortunately, by often having a first gallbladder twinge if they're lucky. They have some pain in their upper right quadrant of their torso, or referred pain maybe in their back along their shoulder blades. Unfortunately, a full-blown gallbladder attack, which is excruciatingly painful, may be the first sign. So this is the type of thing we want to be looking for earlier and thinking about the gallbladder being a victim. And of course, we always want to stop a culprit, a criminal, before it starts claiming victims. So savvy coaches are always asking, who is this person and what is at play in their unique body that might eventually precipitate this type of acute disease if I don't support them to get at the roots and resolve them proactively? So there are many factors that can be at play here. And you can see here, I'm giving you some full text published references to dive into if you want to learn more. Usually for these presentations, we've researched dozens of articles, and I include just a very limited full text set for you. And I do encourage you, if you're curious, if you enjoy diving into the science, these are really interesting references to follow up on, to receive validation for sure of what we're talking about here, but also to get that deeper understanding yourself as a practitioner. So let's talk about the first functional imbalance that is likely, if we don't arrest it, it is likely in women, especially, but even sometimes in men, to be precipitating dysfunction that might lead to gallbladder disease. Estrogenic overload. The primary dynamic at play here is that high estrogen states can increase the cholesterol saturation in bile, making it thicker and changing its flow characteristics, like I mentioned earlier. And this can lead to backup in the biliary tree. And even for the bile that makes it into the gallbladder, this can lead to poor gallbladder emptying over time. And this constant pore emptying is what starts to concentrate toxins in the gallbladder and eventually lead to the formation of stones. But for women in particular who are wrestling with estrogenic overload, um, the driver of this is very seldom ovaries gone wild, right? Instead, what is at play in excessive estrogenic activity in the body is more likely about either synthetic estrogen stimulation caused by endocrine disrupting chemicals, the ones that especially affect estrogen biochemistry, are called xenoestrogens, or poor metabolism and clearance of human estrogens. And there are many people in your practice who struggle with one or both of these. Even women who say, I have optimal hormone levels, but then why do I have concerning symptoms? Why do I have really symptomatic, frustrating PMS? Why do I have heavy menstrual bleeding, maybe even passing clots or a really long menstrual bleeding window? Maybe I have a history of fibroids, right? And maybe I have a body shape that speaks to estrogenic overload, right? Especially that pear body shape where there's a lot of concentration of uh, adipose tissue, specifically in the hips and the buttocks and the thighs. Sometimes people have those initial mild gallbladder twin symptoms and they may feel worse premenstrually. This is where, even before the gallbladder seems to be effective at all, we want to engage in addressing estrogenic overload, not just to save the gallbladder, but also to help women to find relief. And there are a number of different factors that are involved here. There are a number of different things you can educate, inspire, and empower your clients. If they are interested in learning about this, if it inspires them, you can be an awesome partner in a clinical partnership to help them to become aware of and see opportunities to choose to address this. Today, I want to focus specifically on endocrine disrupting chemicals. And we teach an entire clinical course. It's an 8.5 hour course on hormonal dynamics. And so there's a lot you can learn, but specifically around endocrine disrupting chemicals, I want to cover it today because it is indeed an imbalance or a contributor to an imbalance that is often overlooked. But the reality is we are living in a chemical soup in our homes, in our cars, in our communities, and our workplaces. We have bought into the better living through chemistry ideal, and our lives are awash, especially in the US, with all sorts of chemicals that have synergistic amplifying negative effects. And I've highlighted for you in blue throughout these slides some of the dynamics that are particularly notable clinical tips. And when you talk to your clients about toxins and avoiding toxins, health coaches, perhaps more so than any other people engaging with clients and patients in pursuit of health, you know that talking about things like reducing toxins typically doesn't mean very much to your clients at all. They don't know enough yet to know, well, what's a toxin? A lot of people will say, I already have a low toxin lifestyle. And until you engage with them and do a detailed inventory, you're not empowered with the information to help them see where there are massive multifactorial gaps in their perception. Because there are so many different toxins, and a lot of marketing goes into marketing phrases like low toxicity or all natural, right? Mercury is all natural, but we don't want to consume that either, right? People need to be taught where the devil in the detail is, and they need a partner in you in order to help them to identify their exposure, to help them to identify safer alternatives, and to be their partner, to be their accountability a mirror in step by step identifying, eliminating, replacing, and resolving this vulnerability. I like to say that toxicity is crazy overwhelming to people. And often once they get educated, there's so many chemicals that people feel overwhelmed and they may not even want to try because it just feels like there's so much. How could small efforts make a difference? But as the adage goes, even the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first few steps. And working with them to agree on what is one small step that they would like to take, that they would like some support from you with implementing in order to begin. Because beginning does make a big difference. And looking in particular at things, sources of toxicity that people are using all the time. And Jody and I have joked, but it is a serious, serious business about the use of fragrance and even fresh fragrance, right? The oxymoron air freshener. I've never heard anything so ridiculous in my whole life because there's nothing fresh about an air freshener, whether you plug it in or twist it open and sit it on your desk or hang it from the rearview mirror of your car. That is a toxin soaked substance that is designed to infiltrate your home environment so that you breathe it in constantly. And these products in particular tend to be loaded with phthalates, which often show up in the fragrance listing on an ingredient list. And they don't have to disclose the ingredients because it's protected as proprietary information. But phthalates are some of the worst xenoestrogenic chemicals, whether it's that plug-in air freshener to cover the scent of, I don't know, having a pet, or the things you hang from your rear view mirror. And you can really inspire your patients by not just saying, get rid of air fresheners, but tell a story. We need to tell stories and use analogies to inspire people. Those little phthalate soaked, tree shaped cardboard devices we hang from the rear view mirrors that are emanating toxic chemicals. But wait, you leave them in your car, you shut the door, you park your car in the sun, and the heat reflects off of the dashboard. And you come back to your car 2 hours later, the car is raging hot on the inside, which has dramatically increased the emanation of these chemicals from this substance. You get into this hot car and you breathe in the phthalates, you breathe in the endocrine disruption, you breathe in the gallbladder threat, all in the name of fake, fresh scent? Seriously? This is where we've bought into marketing. We've bought into marketing and our lives are suffering from it as a result because this is not something we do episodically. It's in our car. And every time we get in our car, we're being subjected to the toxicity. It's at home, plugged into our bedroom. Every time we sleep, we're inhaling the xenoestrogens all night long. This is a massive opportunity for you to educate, inspire, and empower the clients you love, the clients you want to serve. Because in the absence of your inspiration, your storytelling, your passion, they just don't know. Because the marketing machine working counter to our truthful messages is very, very well funded and designed to be highly influential. And today I just talked about one of the myriad toxic products that are out there. This is something you can get hugely empowered, capable, and confident about teaching. And if you were to focus on nothing in your health coaching project, but being the toxin maven, right? In terms of helping people to assess and find and resolve and support their bodies for getting rid of the toxins, you can transform thousands of lives in ways that absolutely prevent and resolve disease. You are that powerful. The way you deliver care is that powerful and important. And I hope you breathe that in. It's something I've seen for
Not
years and
literally.
years. Yeah, please jump in, Jody.
I was saying, don't breathe it in literally. But what I was going to say is, yeah, I mean, talk about the chain of interconnectedness. Is it, your dryer sheets and your fragrance that you put on and your deodorants and your sunblocks could be gunking up your gallbladder and causing gallstones and causing you to lose a vital organ. I mean, it's crazy the things that we do in the name of beauty, in the name of freshness. I remember we got some kitty litter the other day, and my husband bought the one, he didn't buy the fragrance-free natural one that was all they had in the store. And I could smell it from my bedroom. It was down in the basement. I mean, that's how powerful those phthalates, those endocrine disrupting chemicals were. And yeah, I mean, we had to throw it out. I couldn't take it. It was awful. So.
And what you just described, Jody, is so powerful, right? Dryer sheets. I'm going to have to talk about dryer sheets, right? Because right after air freshener is a dryer sheet. So this is a piece of plastic, right? Plastic fibers that are drenched in phthalates and other fragrance related chemicals, plus polymers that are designed to get activated when heated to force this fragrance coating on your clothing under heat. And then you take it out of the dryer, put it on your body, and we absorb it through our skin when we sweat. And if you've ever had the experience of accidentally having your clothes laundered with a fabric softener or a dryer sheet, you may need to wash that article of clothing literally a dozen times before that scent goes away, because the polymers in the dryer sheet are made to bind the fragrance onto the clothing. This is what they consider to be efficacy, right? The dryer sheet is effective if it is literally bound to the clothing. And then we are what? Hugging the people we love, slathered in phthalates? Or like Jody said, your beloved family pet is mashing their paws in this phthalate drenched kitty litter, which is not only toxic for them, but then they're going to what? Track it all over your house, get it on your couch, jump and put it on your sheets, mash your face with it in a gesture of love. Do we want that? It's crazy to me. So we can begin, and these seemingly small steps are so powerful. And if you feel passionate about these topics, your passion as a coach is an essential part of inspiration for your clients. We are coaching. They have to make the choice for what they want to pursue, what they want to investigate, what they want to explore. But every client benefits from education and inspiration about the options, about the possibilities, so they can choose from amongst more targeted possibilities in terms of helping them to present or resolve disease. I have to move on, Jody, because you and I can tag team on this for hours, right? But it doesn't stop with that, because a lot of people struggle with estrogenic overload, and that is combined with livers that are already overloaded as well. And this may be because of metabolic disease. It may be because of toxic overload, not just from xenoestrogens, but from all the things, right, that we experience in our day-to-day environment, right? Toxins in our air, in our water, in our food, in our beauty products, in our personal hygiene products, in our household cleaning products, outgassing from our mercury fillings, outgassing from the anti-flame retardant agents and the blankets we use and the covering of our couch. It just goes on and on and on. And livers that are congested with toxins do not synthesize optimal bile. Livers that are fatty because of metabolic disease do not generate optimal bile. And indeed, the early stages of metabolic dysfunction, way before people have any type of elevation in blood sugar whatsoever, their blood sugar can be perfectly optimal. In fact, it might even be a little bit low, seemingly, right, ideal. But behind the scenes for many years, sometimes again, a decade or more, there is hyperinsulinemia. And what is happening is that people's day over day lifestyle choices, especially coming from their food, if it's a standard American diet that includes a lot of refined carbohydrates, like highly processed flours, a lot of sugars, especially fructose, but also their stress. Even if people have low glycemic healthy diets, they can experience high glycemic load because of their stress. And this is definitely, unfortunately, the American way. But the combination of our stress level, because high cortisol naturally stimulates the body to make excessive sugar. Your liver will make blood sugar completely separate from your diet, simply to prepare you to fight, flight, and hide because of how stressed you are. So our glycemic load from our diet and from our stress can collude and set up this big glycemic load. But your pancreas says, okay, wait, it's okay. I got you. No problem. I'm just going to make more and more and more insulin. And you can see this in labs, and it's been studied for decades, this progressive increase in fasting insulin, a little higher, a little higher, a little higher, a little higher, a little higher. The pancreas is trying to adapt to accommodate this large glycemic load of our life. Unfortunately, this elevation in insulin, while trying to deal with all the blood sugar to protect our arteries, this insulin is also causing the buildup of fatty incorporation into tissue throughout the whole entire body, in your muscles, in your organs. And this can be a major driver for increased adiposity, whether it's in the torso, in the hips, in the buttocks, in the thighs, but in particular in the stomach area, right? And including the central torso, the liver. People don't have to have elevated blood sugar to develop fatty liver. Sometimes they just have hyperinsulinemia, and it's even subclinical. And if those of you who are working with practitioners, and part of your role is about educating people about the risk of your seemingly normal lab values, this is really powerful education that can empower people to respond way before things become bad enough to be officially diagnosed. Again, this is a massive opportunity for health coaches.
And I love in your school also how you teach us how to interpret labs, even if everything looks like it's in reference range. What can you glean from that and how can you educate your clients? But yeah, I mean, I just
Absolutely.
want to mention too that the doctors, a lot of them are saying, avoid fats if you got gallstones, if you got issues with your gallbladder. But instead of educating them on what to eat, it's just like avoid fats. They start eating more carbs, higher glycemic, and it just gunks things up worse, right? I mean, that's
Yes.
something you can coach your clients through and help them with better choices.
Absolutely, right? And this is where lack of guidance, right? Clients may have wonderful questions. Well, what about this? What about that? This is, I looked online, I asked AI, right? It's wonderful that people want to educate themselves, but they need you to provide that discernment on what is more likely to apply for them or not. And where is AI just running amok with generalizations that, first of all, may not be true. Unfortunately, we're still in the arena where AI gets a lot wrong. That is so essential to understand. But
Hmm.
AI is a great generalist, as though everybody is the same, as though everybody's need for a certain diet or a certain lifestyle is identical. And of course, that's not true. Overall, in general, the problem is that we are waiting for metabolic disease to progress to something diagnosable, right? To a high blood sugar or a clinically high, right? Outside of the normal range blood sugar or hemoglobin A1C. When these earlier stages, especially stage 2, may have been ongoing for many years behind the scenes. And this is where coaches in particular can intervene in stage 2, or even ideally in stage 1, when people are picking up extra central body fat. That is not just a frustration, that is a metabolic wake up call. Or even root cause contributors when you're just assessing someone's overall day to day choices. There are a huge number of well understood root cause contributors that we can assess and help to teach people how these are naturally going to set the stage for progressive metabolic dysfunction. This is where the power of prevention is the greatest. But even this is not the full list of what I want to share, because dysmotility is another huge driver of gallbladder dysfunction. And hopefully, this is obvious to you on some level. Dehydration is rampant there, especially for Americans. Subclinical dehydration is incredibly common, where people are much more likely to drink more coffee or coffee containing beverages, our Starbucks culture, right? Sodas, juices, or alcohol, wine. Unfortunately, the pandemic normalized heavy, even daily, regular alcohol intake. But we struggle to just drink plain, clean water and to get enough electrolytes. And this is huge because water is an ingredient in bile, and anything that has insufficient water is much more likely to function poorly. Dehydration is a common driver of just poor cellular metabolism, period, right? Our mitochondria need water, but bile flow needs water. And so we have to assess this. The other rampant dynamic is poor eating hygiene. And I hope that as a coach, you are already assessing this. Not just what are people eating, but how are they eating? Because an awful lot of people treat eating as almost like an annoyance, something they want to get over as soon as possible. They may be more of a foodie at dinner time, where they may slow down and really savor their meals. But breakfast, lunch are often rushed, harried, non mindful events. We don't chew our food nearly enough. It's the only part of digestion we can control. We are eating while multitasking, while doing email, while scrolling on our phones, while carrying out a meeting, while sitting in aggravating traffic. And our stress, even low grade stress, can have a marked negative effect on digestive secretion and on GI motility in the whole GI tract, including, of course, the biliary tree and gallbladder emptying. But eating hygiene is something you want to truly master. Being able to slow down, chew food thoroughly. For that matter, get in a parasympathetic nervous system state with mindful breathing, with pausing, setting aside competing interests, and taking some good, relaxing, calming breaths before you even start to eat. Taking one bite at a time, putting your fork or your sandwich or whatever, put it down and chew, not just 3 or 4 times. Don't use a liquid to choke down a bite of food. Chew it thoroughly, and it naturally becomes lubricated, and you don't need to drink liquid in order to swallow it, because you've masticated and lubricated the bite of food thoroughly and minimize the work that the whole rest of your GI tract has to do. Taking and chewing one bite at a time, allowing yourself to focus on the enjoyment of the food, right? The aroma, the texture, the flavors. When we slow down and eat more mindfully and more savoring what we're eating, allowing full release of digestive secretion, we're less likely to overeat. Sometimes we're eating so quickly that we're outpacing our digestive secretion. So, of course, you have heartburn with that meal. Of course, you feel like you have dyspepsia or overfull or a feeling of early satiety, because you're asking your body to engage in a parasympathetic function while you're definitely in a sympathetic state. And that's going to cause symptoms. It's going to cause frustration. But subclinical hypothyroidism, something a lot of coaches tend to already be aware of, right? Can be a major driver. Being aware of some of the most common symptoms of hypothyroidism, and being aware that even when people have been told your thyroid is fine, or my doctor said my labs are perfect, you could absolutely still have subclinical hypothyroidism, even with perfect labs. Because what is imbalanced in this type of case is what's happening intracellularly. And at best, our blood labs are going to be a reflection of that. that may or may not be accurate. And this is where you can educate and inspire and empower them to seek support from a practitioner who will honor what they say has been bothering them from a long, long, long time. Subclinical hypothyroidism, I think, is actually the disease dynamic that is probably most often dismissed, and women are really marginalized and ignored with regard to the symptoms they know they have. They live in their bodies. Of course, they know what is awry, and we can help to empower them to be good advocates for themselves. Neural dysfunction is another huge issue where, of course, the GI tract is enlivened by a nerve activation. And in particular, pretty much everything that happens in the GI tract is being stimulated by the vagus nerve. And as I said earlier, this is parasympathetic transmission by and large. And vagal transmission is highly constrained during times of stress. If we want to have optimal digestive secretions, optimal motility, and gallbladder emptying, we need to honor good eating hygiene, honor meals as being a sacred time. But even if we do that, if we struggle with poor nerve health, this can go awry. A lot of your clients who have different types of metabolic disease may have neuropathy. They may have that because of downstream from viral overload, such as we see in long COVID. There can be challenges with not enough nutrients to support our nerves, like inadequate B vitamins, especially B1 and B6 and B12. There are a number of drivers here, and this is where GLP-1 agonists can in particular cause problems, because GLP-1 agonists, the way they get the benefit of reduced appetite is by slowing upper GI motility on purpose and slowing it dramatically. And there's plenty of research now to show that use of GLP-1 agonists can increase the risk of gallstones and gallbladder disease and the need for a cholecystectomy. It is both dosage dependent and duration of use dependent. And not a lot of practitioners, not a lot of prescribers are teaching their patients about this. I want to share with you in the slide deck some accessible, free things that people can do to actually not slightly, but dramatically increase their parasympathetic activation. This can have a marked impact on their GI health, on their immune system health, on their nervous system state. And because of its impact on the nerves, can make a big difference in GI motility, including for the gallbladder. And I just include a slide here also for once the gallbladder has been removed, there is still the opportunity to go and address the upstream dysfunction. And a lot of people who are post-cholecystectomy, they learn about this, they're alarmed, they're concerned, they're afraid. They may start to make some choices that without your guidance are risky, right? Well, I had my gallbladder out 6 months ago, but I've learned that I could still have liver issues. I could still have bile duct problems. So I'm going on this extreme cleanse next week, thinking that that's going to be a positive thing. It could actually be dangerous. Lots of people who have had their gallbladder removed still have small stones in their biliary tree. There's a lot of congestion that needs to be slowly and mindfully emulsified so that flow can be restored. And there's a lot you can learn about helping them to do that in a safe way, right? People make the choices they make, and certainly health information is ubiquitous these days. But this is a critical part of people understanding their bioindividuality. What is my situation rather than a general situation? There is no such thing as a diet that works for everyone or a cleanse that makes sense for everyone, right? And they're going to have questions, and you can get educated for sure to give confident answers to people and help them to understand relevant cautions about what their unique situation is likely to present with. So that's what I have for you today, which I know it's a quick hour, right? Because there is so much to learn. And I've really just touched the surface today, but I've tried to give you just a handful of things that you can start with right away, some tools, some specifics, so that you can feel capable and confident to start educating, inspiring, and empowering in the arena of some of these powerful functional imbalances. So, Jody, you are muted, love. I think you're trying to jump in.
I am, in fact.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that was amazing. Thank you so much for presenting that. I think it was great service to so many people. You can, I mean, all the classes with Tracy, you can get the replay. And I think that's really important to listen to it
Mm.
again. And you're gonna, if you're on the email list, you'll get the replay. It's jodyfranklin.com/links, JODIfranklin.com/links. You can get on the email list and you can go ahead and get the replay sent along with the slides. We're gonna send you the slides as well. But Tracy is offering a very special deal for you
Mm.
all today on her gut program. So if you want to take a toe dip into functional medicine, or even if you think you've mastered the gut, this is something that is going to be a game changer for you. And it's great because a lot of people don't, they want to make sure that they're comfortable with functional medicine. But if you master the gut, you have mastered so much that you can help your clients with, because so much disease begins in the gut. And this program, when Tracy designed the School of Applied Functional Medicine, it's really designed for coaches. It's a coaching model where you can incorporate it into any kind of model, but this is designed to help your clients step by step to get better and offer them coaching. And it's designed for coaches, but they actually gives you CME credits, which is for doctors and nurse practitioners. So there are many of those in the school as well. And in the school, you get so much classes like this that you can listen to a few times, and she encourages you to do that to let it sink in, because there's so much that comes at you. It's better to listen to it a few times, but also the case studies. And so you're going to learn, one of your fellow students will present a case, and Tracy will jump in and help you think and say, what would you do in this case? And we all kind of participate and type in the chat and say, this is what I would do. And it's a safe space for learning and really growing and challenging your thinking and your knowledge. And for everybody, whatever stage you're in, you're encouraged to participate. Then Tracy will tell you, well, this is what I would do in this case. And oh my gosh, I still learn after 10 years or 11 years following Tracy and being in the school. I still am learning. And it's just, there's so much to know. But it doesn't matter. Even within my first course at SAFM, I felt confident enough to help people. And that's what happened. Is by the time I was done with my first semester with Tracy, I had to quit my part-time job, because just word of mouth, I was getting so many referrals because I became really confident in what I was doing. And now I feel like I have the skill set to help anybody with anything that comes to me, because I learned how to go upstream and figure out the dysfunction, like we did today with the gallbladder. What do you do? And so check out the slides, because there's so much more great information in there. And I put in the chat the course. This is, Tracy, do you want to talk about what the course includes? Because this is just such a great way to get into functional medicine at a very inexpensive cost.
And for those of you who are, this is also eligible for 10 hours of NBHWC continuing education for those of you who are nationally certified as a coach. But this is, first of all, if you're going to master any system in the body through the functional medicine lens, please let it be the gut. Please don't think, oh, I'm just going to do hormones, right? Great. If you want your expertise to be hormones, learn and master the gut as well. I just want to do obesity and weight loss. Great. Master the gut as well, because so much of what is happening in autoimmune disease, in thyroid, in hormone imbalance, in long COVID, right? The gut is where so much disease begins or is exacerbated. And it's the reason why this is our only separate standalone clinical course that we offer. And over 1,000 people have taken this course. Actually, SAFM has trained thousands of health coaches since we formed. Actually, next year is going to be our 15-year anniversary, which is amazing. But thousands of health coaches have gone through SAFM. And like Jody said, the reason I started SAFM was to not only put out good, rigorous science, but to give that devil in the detail of, okay, I understand the science, but now how do I apply it? And how do I apply it in, in Mary's case, and Jose's case, and Alfred's case, and Monique's case? Because the bioindividuality makes all the difference in the world. And if you want to have the business success of someone like Jody, where wildly satisfied clients can't wait to give you an amazing written or video testimonial, it's not enough to kind of help them. You're never going to get rave reviews if you just kind of help people. You've got to have enough empowerment and skills and a toolbox to really wildly satisfy them. And then they usually can't wait to give you testimonial after testimonial, because it's reciprocity. They want to share the love, right? And as Jody has well experienced, their testimonies, their referrals of their friends, their neighbors, their family, their colleagues, they can fill your practice. And that may sound extreme, but it's no joke. It's happened to lots of SAFM students. But begin with the gut. That is where you most want to master, how can I make a difference, right? Where you have lots of tools, lots of education, lots of stories and analogies done for you that you can turn around and share with your clients in ways that will inspire them. It's important that your education is that deep, because it's the only thing that's going to make you confident. And if you're not confident, it's going to be really hard to wildly satisfy anyone. Confidence is also a critical part of your efficacy. And it's important that your training is deep enough that you feel really confident. And I'm excited to make this course available. And again, for those of you who need CEs for your certification, that's great too. But this is a 12-hour course. It includes 8 weeks of access. So to Jody's point, you can experience it as many times as you want. There's downloadable resources as well. But through December 19th, there's $200 off on this. We're coming up to the end of the year, and then going into the new year, a number of you are going to have some downtime and inspired to really do your best work supporting new clients in the new year. This tends to be the time of year when this course enrollment is at its highest. Of course it is, because for many people, it's when we have an opportunity to prioritize building more skills, bringing on board more knowledge so we can be more capable and confident.
And I will
So
say,
I'm excited about this.
I am too. Oh, so many of you have time off the end of the year. You could literally do the 12 hours of the videos within the week that you have off if you want. You can, and then listen to them again for reinforcement. Start in January marketing your gut course. I mean, you could literally, you get one new client, it'll pay for the whole thing. And I think you'll do very, very well with this. This course is part of the larger curriculum at SAFM. And so if it resonates with you when you're done with the course to roll into the larger curriculum, you will be learning what the doctors and nurses are learning in functional medicine. You will learn, actually, let me just tell a story. When I first started SAFM and I was a few months in, I had a client come to me who had already been to a functional medicine doctor. And I freaked out. And since then, I've had probably over 100 that have been to a functional doctor that I can work with. But I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm just a health coach. How am I going to help this person? And I was able to find things and figure things out better than that functional doctor, because the functional doctor, probably not to throw him under the bus, but he probably had, maybe a 5-day intensive functional medicine training. And I was learning a deep, rich dive into it and also how to apply it effectively. And this client reversed her fibromyalgia, reversed her chronic urticaria. She had hives all over her body. She reversed her GI symptoms, her thyroid symptoms. Everything got reversed. We started out with the gut and we worked our way through everything. But it just gives you, Tracy has a way of teaching it that makes it easy to understand. And through repetition, you get it all. So even if you didn't absorb everything today, you're going to hear it over and over and over again and through case studies and things like that. So it all sinks in. So don't get nervous, don't get intimidated by it. Just do the course and you will be so grateful that you did. And I will tell you, it is so worth it. For 497, this thing I think could be worth thousands of dollars. You could, it's like getting, it's almost like a master's level of education. One master's degree course is thousands of dollars. This is 497, and you can write it off before the end of the year too. So get in your
That too.
write-offs and don't put it off, because so many of you will not do it today and then you'll forget about it. Just do it, commit to it, and you can start learning today, and you will never look back, I promise you. And I have so many people over the years that have just thanked me for introducing them to SAFM. Just incredibly grateful. I'm always getting love for that. So
You
I
are. I mean,
appreciate
that's very authentic.
it.
That's not exaggerated at all. And
Yeah.
it's all very authentic and comes from that generosity of sharing.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm sharing here just a few testimonials that I'm super grateful and privileged to receive. There's a whole bunch more on the course page, right? If you'll click on go to the link here at the bottom, right? When you get the slides, you can obviously click on it. All sorts of testimonials. There's details there about the particular modules and segments in the course. But this is a powerful way for you to do a deeper dive into functional medicine. If you're thinking about enrolling in a larger functional medicine program like at SAFM, this is a great way to sample the way we teach at SAFM, which again is quite different from a lot of other schools because it's all focused on applicability, right?
Mm.
Not just kind of this theoretical, become steeped in the science. Because what I learned back when I originally went and did my own functional medicine training a long time ago, almost 20 years ago, um, what I learned is that there are a lot of people with lots of functional medicine credentials, but very little capability and confidence. A lot of people on the sidelines. They've got knowledge and credentials and credibility, but they're not changing people's lives. There's a big difference between having knowledge and having skills. And so
Mhm.
SAFM was created to build skills. And so we certainly teach science, but the lion's share of what we emphasize is about the art of applying it and the step-by-step approach to customizing support for a unique individual so that they actually get well, right? And you are much more likely to help them, to partner with them, to find amazing improvement in their health. Not a little bit, not 10% improvement, not 20% improvement. So when someone says, "How was it?" they go, "Eh, it's okay. It was fine. She's fine. I'm fine. I learned a little bit." You don't want that. That is not going to build your practice. You want people in response to that question to say, "Wow, it was amazing. I just can't even believe, like, working with Jody changed my life. I can't believe how much I learned. I can't believe how much better I feel. In fact, I had no idea that I could feel this good," is a quote that you get a lot when
Mhm.
you are that much more capable of doing the work. And I want that for all coaches. Lots of times coaches are not as confident as I believe they deserve to be because of how powerful your work is, how powerful your intervention, your partnership can be, simply because you haven't gotten enough training to be confident. And this is where you can totally change your future in that way. And I mean that very sincerely from the heart. So if it inspires you, please do check it out. Over 1,000 medical and wellness professionals have taken this course since we started it, 4 years ago, I think, maybe. Um, so well vetted for sure. And I would be honored for you to experience it and become a member of our student community.
And
But
let me say this too,
yeah,
Tracy, there's a school that's well known for functional medicine that is only available for doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners. You have to be licensed to learn this kind of knowledge. And I have so many friends who are medical professionals who have done those courses. And in order to get the certification, you have to be licensed. The this program, when they've taken both, because they do this after because they need to fill in gaps, every single one of them has said that SAFM blows away the other one. And it's available for health coaches. and like I said, Tracy teaches in a way that makes it easy to understand. She uses analogies, she uses stories, she tells you things. So you won't regret this. I can't say enough positive about it. It has been truly the key to the success of my practice. I couldn't do what I'm doing without it. If you any of you want to check out some of my success stories, jodyfranklin.com/happy clients. I have dozens and dozens of written testimonials and video interviews of people that have just completely turned their lives around because of my rich clinical knowledge, because of what I learned at SAFM. And I always joke that I'm channeling my inner Tracy. It's like I'm just doing what I've been learned and just getting incredible results from it. So Wanda's saying she took the gut class last year and it was awesome. I
Mm,
agree. I know that
thank
there's some questions on the forum here, and somebody was asking about the best test to assess optimal bile function. And that's a big loaded question because some of the lab markers that you're going to learn about are nutrient dependent. So if you have somebody with an alkaline phosphatase that looks low, they could still have gallbladder liver congestion and it's just not showing up. And same with the ALT, AST. So you learn the nuances that the doctors don't even know. They look at the labs and say, oh, your liver's fine. You don't have fatty liver. But this person is like loaded with fatty liver, gallbladder, gallstones, everything. And their labs may not reflect that, right, Tracy?
Absolutely. There are a lot of we absolutely value and teach precise usage of everyday annual physical labs. And there are a lot of ways in which they are underutilized, but also lots of ways in which they are overinterpreted. And so this is where I think the devil is in the detail for sure around teaching, right? In general, in functional practice, labs tend to be overused or overordered, but then underutilized in terms of just how much value we can glean from them. But certainly a basic liver panel, right? ALT, AST, ALP, in particular, important GGT in terms of being able to assess the likelihood of oxidative overload in the liver and how to respond to that. I think is important. But as far as everyday labs go, right, even looking at things like serum bile acids, right, where we have an understanding of whether or not there's spillage of that, just like spillage of alkaline phosphatase into the blood can be a marker of tissue dysfunction. If you're doing a comprehensive stool test, you can look for excessive amounts of fats or cholesterol in the stool. But the most important thing is less about making the correct diagnosis and more importantly about going upstream from it and resolving what's causing it, right? Certainly something can be acute enough that we need to engage in a with triage and appropriate arresting. And I have a deep respect for all of that emergency and acute medical intervention. But for the vast majority of functional medicine clients and patients, our greatest opportunity is not so much to argue about the diagnosis, but go upstream and resolve what's causing it. And let's make the diagnosis, right or wrong, go away so that we restore optimal tissue functioning. And yeah, what Jody was describing around uh, the um, the way that everyday labs can be misleading, right? If for example, right, people have a nutrient poor diet and they're struggling with deficiency in nutrients like zinc and magnesium and vitamin B6, then their liver function tests are going to look perfect simply because the body doesn't have enough nutrients to make the level of those biochemicals that it wants to make to show you there's a problem. And this is why we want to use labs for sure, but we also really want to cast a broader net and look at the qualitative presentation.
And and also just like even if alkaline phosphatase, let's say for example, is in a high range, but it's still in reference range. It's never flagged on the Western medicine world, right? And but we know like what the optimal range is versus the reference ranges are wild. So So yeah, you're going to learn all the nuances of lab work in the broader course. But there's a question about polyps, but I just want to say that that kind of thing is covered throughout the extensive course as well, and what to do about things like that. But I just wanted to say also in the course in the uh, SAFM course, we have this treasure chest. And you can look up, I'm going to look up acid reflux, for example, because if my client has it, you're going to get all the questions that have been asked about acid reflux. And so you can search key terms here. And there's what is there, over 1,000 entries in there now, Tracy, of all kinds of all kinds of issues. So you can look at Parkinson's disease. Let's look that up, and there and get answers to questions that you have about a certain disease process. Now, this is not you're going to learn about these things within the curriculum, but it's just amazing to have access to this where you have questions that students have asked and really, really rich answers of what to do, what supplements to recommend, what to look for, what to avoid. So you just have so much confidence just within the curriculum. It's amazing, but just having that alone is worth just incredible. Having a membership like that would be worth hundreds of dollars. And that, the course itself, the full certification is actually really inexpensive now, which is great too. So we could talk about that another time.
Yeah,
But anyway,
for sure, for sure. And it's oh, we have had the privilege, right, of the receiving the support from some benefactors that really want functional medicine training to be available to as many people as possible and to not be so financially hard to access. And so that's really empowered us to be able to make this training very financially accessible, especially on the other side of the pandemic, where there's a lot of factors that can really constrain finances. Um, and if you're considering it, I really think this course is the best place to start. But Jody, let me answer a couple of these detailed questions that I see, right? Just in
sure.
terms of responding. So gallbladder polyps, uh, really the best kind of non-invasive type of assessment would really be an ultrasound, right? An abdominal ultrasound in order to really detect and in particular to differentiate between polyps and gallstones, right? Obviously, those are different things. The drivers for the dysfunction, though, can still be similar, right? In terms of that poor bile flow, that cholesterol precipitation can still be what promotes that mucosal irritation that can lead to polyps, or the gallbladder dysfunction that can lead to gallstones, right? So the upstream root causes can be the same, even though it may manifest downstream in different types of dysfunction, is a good example of what I was talking about earlier. There's also a question here about B vitamins, and is it better to use Bs as single nutrients or B complex? The vast majority of the time, B complex is going to be the way to go. There are some pearls to learn about differentiating between a good B complex and a not good B complex, and also not too much too fast. We really recommend starting a B complex, in particular with one that doesn't have over the top amounts of vitamin B6 to begin, and not over the top amounts of niacin, B3, until you know the vulnerability of your client to a niacin flush. And also the forms of nutrients really needing to be bioavailable. So something like a Thorn Basic B, for example, I think is a great formula that can be safe to begin with. But we want to start low and slow, because when you introduce B vitamin supplements in a body that may have been deficient for a long time, you're going to fire up hormonal pathways, fire up neurotransmitters, fire up detoxification in ways that may have been stagnated for a while. So we teach: open up a B complex capsule, untwist it, empty out half of it, reassemble it, take it in the middle of a meal, and only do it once every 2 or 3 days until someone sees how they feel. This is what we call starting low and slow. If a person feels great, no harm, no foul. Have them do that for a full 10 to 14 days just to make sure they have tolerance. But if someone has a bad reaction, maybe they um, have fatigue, they have anxiety, they get hives. That is a wake up call to back up, take a break for a week, and then go even lower and slower. Imagine how decimated someone would have been if they jumped in with a higher dose too much too fast. This is where we have to really encourage prudence. And you can really learn to master these things, right? This is basic education at SAFM. There are definitely scenarios in which you'll want to add to the B complex a higher dose of a certain one, like vitamin B12, especially for people as they age, people who are using metformin for their diabetes, which naturally impairs vitamin B12 absorption. They may need more help with vitamin B12, and that is a huge mediator of neural function in the body. So there's definitely some devil in the detail here that you can learn. Can I answer two more questions, Jody? I know we're over,
Sure,
but
sure. We're going
I
over, but
just
that's okay.
I want to be of service, right?
Yeah,
So
no, it's
there's
great.
a question here about the best diet when someone has gallbladder issues. And this is where backing down on fats and increasing vegetables makes a massive difference. And by vegetables, I don't mean potatoes. I mean broccoli and beets and celery and cucumbers and tomatoes and endive and kale and cauliflower and turnips and the huge array of nutrient dense vegetable foods that are available to people. I think in particular, it's important to really cut back wildly on saturated fat, leaving in some monounsaturated fats, right? In particular, olive oil and avocado oil, for example, because that can actually help with regard to eventual gallbladder emptying, right? The polyphenols that are in olive oil can help with emptying. But when you know someone has gallbladder congestion, especially maybe the early twinges of discomfort or pain, that is not the time to start doing olive oil shots. In fact, that could be disastrous because if someone already has a stone, the last thing you want to do is encourage a lot of gallbladder emptying because that could actually cause a blockage. So we're talking about dramatically cutting back on other fats and even unhealthy fats that you would encourage them to eliminate anyway. But, still having, maybe a teaspoon or so a day of things like avocado oil and olive oil, right? As part of their diet, but really getting in the phytonutrients in vegetables, in particular, that are needed to support the liver in terms of addressing some of this congestion. And like I shared in the presentation, there's also good supplements that can help with the actual emulsification of sludge and small stones, things like choline, D-limonene, UDCA, and TUDCA. There's really good research, right, into targeted supplementation use and just starting low and slow with those. And these are things you can learn about in the course for sure.
And I've definitely with clients have seen their liver enzymes and those lab numbers come way down.
Yeah.
And in fact, we had somebody who was on a liver transplant list and
Mm,
came to my practice, and we were able to reverse that dynamic, get her off the liver transplant list. Her liver enzymes were so crazy high and they
yeah.
came down to normal range, and she no longer needs a liver transplant. I mean, think about the
Yeah.
savings of tens of thousands of dollars for the surgery like that, not to
No,
mention the,
hundreds of thousands of
is it hundreds
dollars
of
for that
thousands?
surgery. Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, the medical care costs and just in terms of the toll on her to have a liver, I mean, a
Well,
liver
potentially life
transplant.
saving, right?
Yeah, for
Potentially life
sure.
saving. But I
Yes.
want everyone to breathe in, right? And in our practice, same type of thing, right? People have already scheduled a surgery to have their gallbladder removed.
Mhm.
If you can partner with them to get them committed. Now they have to take the action, right? We're coaching them. Nobody can go to their home and change their life and fix them, right? People have to be empowered and they have to be committed and take their own action. But it's amazing how the resilient their liver is, in particular, when they stop doing what's causing the congestion and
Mhm.
start doing what can help with emulsification um, and clearance
Mhm.
in order to regain health. And I got to tell you, as a coach, there's nothing quite so fulfilling and exciting as that day you get the email that says, "Oh my gosh, my name got taken off the list today. They canceled my surgery." I got to tell you from personal experience, you know, there is nothing more satisfying from a career viewpoint, right? And it's not just here, it can be a whole bunch of other. The day my type 2 diabetes has gone away, right? My autoimmune disease, the diagnosis has gone away, right? My antibodies are now at a subclinical level. These may feel like way, way out there types of dynamics, but the interventions are still lifestyle mediated, right? They're still focused on addressing the root causes.
Yeah.
And I
And
know
and
we need
I'm
to end,
yeah, I know
but
we have to go.
I really want everyone who gets the chance to listen to this. If you take nothing away from today's session at all, first of all, I want to say thank you for just letting me offer some wisdom and some thoughts for you, period. I am grateful to have that opportunity. But more than anything, I want you to take away the message of how powerful you are as a health coach. This modality of health coaching is an absolutely essential part of healthcare transformation. It cannot happen without you. And it's the primary thing that's been missing from effective healthcare for a very, very long time because chronic disease is lifestyle mediated. And if people don't have a partner that they know, like, and trust, that they can be educated, inspired, and empowered and supported to make step-by-step change that naturally changes their physiology and their biochemistry in really dramatic ways, they cannot get well, much less stay well. They cannot. It's impossible. It is literally impossible. So please breathe in. You are that important. What you do matters hugely. And I want you to just embrace that value, that opportunity, your leadership, because we need you. We need you to do your very best work to make an impact in our mission for healthcare transformation.
Thank you, Tracy. We'll end on that. That was fantastic. We really appreciate you coming in here today, and hopefully, a lot of you will take advantage of that course. You will never look back. You will love it, and hopefully, it'll be a segue into the fuller, broader course if you decide to do that later on, and just get that level of knowledge and confidence that you need to make this a real sustainable career for you and help your clients on a whole different level. All right, take care, everybody. Bye,
Thanks very
Tracy. Thank
much.
you so
Bye
much.
bye.
All right, bye-bye.